Thanks for your service, Ford Crash Bar, but I got better plans for you.
Can't find the hole, Jimmy!
Winter's coming, baby. When winter does come, all the other projects stop and this project starts. Hey everybody, my name is Dan. So if you're a car guy or a Jeep guy, if you've ever built an axle, you know that they're kind of a pain to work on. So I'm gonna take this scrap metal and build a stand so that I can set the axle on it. I'm not gonna go buy any metal for it. I'm just gonna use what I got laying around the shop, and hopefully I'll make something better than the little rickety jack stand setup that I got over there. So let me show that to you real quick. Alright, so this is the Dana 60 I'm talking about. As you can see, it's heavy because it's got a lot of extra stuff on it. So I have jack stands on rolling dollies from Harbor Freight, and while I can move it around, it's really sketchy, and I have to have this third jack stand to hold this up, and I just want something that's a little bit better than this. So I had thought about taking some 2x4s and trying to join these two carts together just so that it would move as one unit, because they both try just wiggling and wobbling and doing whatever. So personally, I think it's worth the couple hours of extra time to build something to cut down on the struggle time later. So the first thing I want to do is, I picked up this bandsaw from a buddy for really cheap, but I'm going to take that tube right there, because that's the longest piece I have of scrap, and I'm just going to cut it dead down the middle, and that's going to be basically our max height, and we'll go from there. And I just want to point out, when I do stuff like this, I don't have a plan. I don't know exactly how this is going to go. I'm just going to start sticking metal together. You don't need fancy tools to do stuff like this. You just need the will and the desire to get your butt out here in the shop and do it. You know, I could just as easily take an angle grinder and chop this thing. I don't need this. I have an Evo saw, I have a plasma cutter, and the tools are great, but if you don't have that desire to be out here doing it and making it for yourself, it just don't matter. So that's step one. I don't know, what do you guys think? This kind of doesn't look like it's a perfect 90-degree cut to me, so I might need to check that first. I think it's running this way a little bit. Oh yeah, that looks a lot better. Take two. Suppose I better knock these turds off of there. This blade's pretty chooched. Hey, look at that. Now I can still use this angle iron. So that kind of brings me to my next point. This and this piece I'm cutting and pretty much everything I have in here, it's all scrap. It's all stuff I either got for free, salvaged, whatever, because steel's expensive. You sure as heck don't need to go to the steel yard and buy a bunch of brand new steel to make something junky like this. I just gotta cut that little guy and I should be able to get this one off. This piece is good to go back in the pile. So there's our two pieces, and other than having to knock some old weld off here, that's gonna be our base. And I'd say I did a pretty decent job measuring and cutting those pretty even. They may be just a hair off, but it's close enough for what we're doing. So I've been playing scrap metal Jenga here because I really wanted to still use some of these dollies so I can roll the thing around. And I came up with some pretty good ideas, but I've actually kind of settled on this little idea, and I got inspired to do this by the engine stand that I just picked up for that motor I got sitting in the driveway. For this middle piece, all I have is this really beefy angle iron. So this is just a really basic idea. Those black bars are actually Ford Bronco crash bars that go by the front wheels. Those are more of those. Plan on doing some big old chunky gussets right here. I've got this scrap of 3/8 that I plasma cut when I did my torch. It'll just reach to go like in between right here, but I don't have anything that will reach on that side. So then for these cradles, what I'm going to do is throw it in my press brake, put a little bend in it so it comes up on either side, so it'll kind of make like a nice cradle. I'll probably clean off my fab table and clamp it all down up there so it stays square. So in the words of Taylor Ray, if you've ever watched his channel, enough jibber jabber, let's get to work. Shut up, cat. Watch this, she's terrified of the saw. All she wants to do is be out here in the garage, but she's scared of everything I do. Where you going? So before I set all this up, I am gonna have to clean paint off. What I want to do is just kind of make some marks on my table and get everything laid out. Line these up with the edge of the table, and then I can use this to project a line. This laser's having such a hard time showing up on the camera, but I can see it. It even ends up on the wall too. So to get the rust, the mill scale, and the paint off of these, what I'm actually going to use is these stripper discs. So this is what they look like brand new. They're just this purple stuff, but I am telling you, these things remove this stuff so much better than even flap discs, and they don't really chew into the metal. If you really push down hard on one spot, it'll grind some metal, but for the most part, it just takes the crap, leaves the metal alone. Super worth it, so they'll be linked to these down there too. Well, thanks for your service, Ford Crash Bar, but I got better plans for you. So this is even an old, worn out one. Tell me that ain't kick-ass. We're gonna break out all Big Bertha here to grind these old welds off here because they drive me nuts. Everything looks good. Let's see where we're at. 0.2 off of 90, that's pretty good. 89.9. Okay, so I've got that all set up and tacked. I can clamp a few of them down, but unfortunately I don't have a fixture table, so I can't clamp it all in place. I can throw some corner magnets on it and clamp this or that, but what I'm gonna do is just try to jump around, tack weld it. Hopefully nothing warps. If it does, I'll break the tacks or try to bend it back before we full weld it. Let's weld. Yeah, I just had it in grind mode. That was New battery in the helmet and a new battery in the camera. Let's try this again. It's like the world doesn't want me to weld this. Now I'm out of wire. I swear to God, if I run out of gas next, I'm just quitting. I can't find the hole, Jimmy. Okay, so there's round one of welding. So now we got to move on to building more stuff. We're going to build the cradles out of these. We got to bend them up first. And I'm also going to build some gussets right here. Now I have not welded in a long time, so some of these turned out pretty decent. Some of them turned out a little chunky. Not too dissatisfied. Hey, that one don't look too bad. It's nice to get back under the hood because it had been a while. But I'm thinking I want some gussets, which that's why I ground this coating away. Now I don't know if I'm just going to do little pieces of tube or if I'm going to find some more chunks of plate. Time to go dig through the scrap box and the scrap thing, and there's scrap under there too. See what we can find. Since this is gonna have wheels, it's kind of bugging me that this bottom isn't welded, so I'm gonna clean that paint off and weld those too. Okay, so real quick, The only reason I'm using these bottom legs the way I am is because I'm using scrap metal, and if you can find a solid piece to just run one piece across the bottom and then stick this on top of it, you eliminate all those welds and you eliminate the chance of those legs kind of bowing up like what happened on mine. Now luckily I'm putting it on wheels so it doesn't matter, but I'm sure somebody's going to comment, why didn't you just use a solid piece? Well, because I'm using crash bars from a Ford Bronco and scrap metal, that's why. My uprights are 2.5 inches, so I need to split the difference on that, which would be 1.25 inches on either side of this mark, and that will be the bend lines. One there, and one there. I'm going to bend these up at 45s, and that should cradle the axle. The ends of these are not square, and I don't really care, they don't need to be. I just want my bends to be square. So if you like what I got going on so far, give the video a thumbs up and maybe subscribe. So now, in order to bend these, we gotta use the press brake, which means I gotta turn the compressor on. The problem with that is it's 12:30 at night and I don't need any more calls to the police from a neighbor, so we're picking this up in the morning. Well, I guess I could hand pump the press like a peasant, but you know what, I'm tired anyway. Oh well. Alright guys, it's the next day. I went ahead and bent the first one up off camera, and you can tell that's way more than a 45. Let me show you why I did that. So I originally did the 45 and it was just swimming in here, so I just kept bending it up higher and higher to where it kind of sits in there. There's still a little bit of rock back and forth, so I may bend it up a little more, and on the second one I may just put my bend lines a little bit closer together so that it doesn't do that. I can't move them too much closer together because then you'll be able to see down into the tube, and I don't want that. So let's go to the press brake. Okay, so here's our metal, and you can see I just made these little dashes just inside on that line so that hopefully this one's a little bit tighter of a fit. Well, I went a little too far on this one, so you can see one's way more bent than the other. I can't make this one match because when I put it in there, this runs back into the press brake, but it actually fits perfect, so I'm fine with a little bit of aesthetic differences because it fits in there how I wanted the first one to fit. So I'm actually going to see if I can maybe make that one do the same thing. And this is what I'm talking about. It's a perfect fit with no wiggle back and forth. Because the whole idea is I want it to wedge in there and have the weight of it kind of like force it in there so that it doesn't rotate. Let's see if that made a difference. Oh, perfect. Sweet. She may not be pretty, but she's gonna work. Not too bad for some vertical up, down on the floor. I'll take it. Not really sure why, but these non-locking ones have a longer plate than those ones, so I'm gonna put an L for locking on those two. Well, dang it, I forgot to hit record. So what I did is I took these two, because they have different hole patterns and everything. So I marked them out, and then I just tack welded them together so I can throw it in the drill press and basically drill 8 holes in the time it takes to drill 4. I would have done all 4 of them together, but the patterns are like, this one's longer than that one, so it is what it is. They all line up. So now I gotta bust these tacks off, clean them up, and weld them. Whew. Well, glad I didn't run out of gas. So now, really the biggest thing we have left is bolting these on, so I just gotta pray to the bonus bolt bin that I can find 16 quarter 20 bolts and nuts and maybe a few washers to go with it. Of course, the stuff that we want is always sunk to the bottom underneath the big stuff. Guys, if you don't have yourself a bonus bolt bucket, you need to go get one. Tell you what, at my old job, it's a damn good thing that when we took apart old machines to like scrap them out, they always let me keep the hardware, and that's kind of where this thing came from. And there was tons of quarter 20 stuff in here, so I think we're gonna be good. Look at that, we got 16 of each. I just don't have the normal washers. We didn't even clean this thing out, man. There's still tons of them in there. So here's yet again another budget tip. I bought one of those things with like all these little plastic drawers from a garage sale for like $3. And it's just chock full of washers. Most of these are too big, but I am finding some of the ones I need in here. The point of all these little tips I'm giving you is there's ways to do this stuff cheap. You don't have to run out to the store and buy all new hardware, and buy this, and buy new steel, and buy everything. You can literally scrounge together some really cool stuff if you just put in the effort. Alright guys, there we go. Paint is currently drying. So, in order for me to put an axle on that and show you how it works, I have a lot of work to do first because I can't pick those up by myself. And there's an engine sitting over there on my cherry picker. So I have to put that on the new engine stand that I bought just so that I can get my cherry picker to pick the axle up and put it on there. But even then I have to cut a couple brackets off because there's brackets right where I wanted to land my little legs. Now we're gonna see if the old Yes Welder plasma cutter is up to the task. I set this stand up to go right here, so before I can mount it on there I gotta cut these guys off. I went ahead and just set this down on some wood blocks because I don't have the bolts to go in the engine stand, and I got the clutch still on there, and I just don't feel like dealing with it right now. So we got the cherry picker free. Gotta cut this. And that plasma cutter, that thing is such a lifesaver. That took less than 10 minutes to cut all this off of there. There's that beautiful leaf spring perch. So obviously I need to grind and clean it up more, but we've got enough of this tube exposed to try out our stand now. This thing won't go the way I want it to go. Alright, so I strapped this down to this side, and I strapped this down right there, so hopefully it can't rotate in either direction. So now we can get this cherry picker out of here. I mean, it rolls. It's definitely not an easy roll, but enough for me to maneuver it around, put it where I want to work on it. Definitely feels a little top heavy, but it doesn't feel like it's gonna tip over. But if you got moving real fast and hit a rock, you just never know. Can't even begin to tell you how stoked I am at how that came out and how much time that's gonna save me when I go to like cut everything else off and just build that axle in general. In case you haven't noticed, we're running out of nice weather fast, at least if you live in the north half of the country. It's winter's coming, baby. And when winter does come, all the other projects stop and this project starts. So I got a lot to get ready. So anyway, I hope that you guys enjoyed this build as much as I did, because it felt great to get back out here and weld. I hadn't welded in a long time, and maybe this will inspire you to build your own. Thanks for watching, guys. Sub to the channel if you haven't. Give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you next week. I just did the wrong end of that.